your service on the battlefield and beyond. Bravo.
What is going on, everybody? I'm Liam Cogan, and this is the 3 Bravo podcast. Today, we're going to be doing a military veterans news week. Just a breakdown of the news as I see it, hitting the big wave tops from the military and the veteran communities. Jumping right into this, so we're into May. I think the biggest news topic, in my opinion, that flies in the face of every veteran in America and many people who support veterans around America is that the president came out and said that he wants to rename Veterans Day to World War I Victory Day, and simultaneously make May 8th World War II Victory Day. I get where he's coming from on this one, but that is a PR nightmare. So they've already rolled this back or walked it back, and Caroline Leavitt said to the press today, maybe it was today, May 4th. She might have said it today or yesterday. However, all she said was that they're going, like, World War I Victory Day is going to be a superlative of Veterans Day. You know, so it just like is something to also know Veterans Day by. That's not going to go over well either. So don't think they really thought either of those two pushes to get like at all. And maybe that's just someone going to the office of Trump saying, hey, that's not going over super well. Like, people on all sides of the aisle are not super about renaming Veterans Day. And then their kind of capitulation to be like, it was still a good idea. We'll just, it'll be known as that as well. Still not going to go over well. There's one day for veteran appreciation. There's Memorial Day, which is a different purpose. There's July 4th, different purpose. All of these things have a particular purpose. Pearl Harbor, we celebrate in memoriam. 9/11, we celebrate in memoriam. Veterans Day is specifically to celebrate veterans and their service. I think doing anything to detract from that, although it is the victory day of World War I, is a misfire. So there's not much more to say about it. The fact that people are like continuing to post about it and writing long fucking diatribes about, oh, this is what the DAV said, and this is how everyone's responding, and this is this, and I'm bipartisan, and blah, 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 blah. Stop paying so much lip service to this. It's just same guy doing the same stuff. Wanted to rename something, thought it was a cool idea, realized that everyone hated that, and now they're walking it back. It was a stupid idea. That's all it is. Can we stop giving everything so much power? It's crazy. For example, so much power. You want to talk about people losing their fucking minds over nothing. Just go look at what Trump has been posting, or the White House press or official press X or Twitter account, or whatever you want to call it. Go look at what they've been posting. They're just producing AI images of Trump looking absolutely ridiculous. They said like May the 4th today, and he was jacked and he had a lightsaber, and just, oh, people are losing it. Oh my God, it's just the worst thing. Oh, barf emoji. It's like, dude, God bless. If you let someone you don't know, like you don't know, own you that way, you are so delusional and so detached from reality. If you let someone you don't know, although they do govern this country, but our country is literally dissected into 3 major pieces, so one person can't do everything and ruin everything. And also, get off your couch, get away from your computer, and walk outside. Not much has changed. If you can't disassociate with like someone wanting to rename a day, now as veterans, we're pissed. We're all pissed. It's our day of appreciation. I get that. I want to stand with veterans. I want more things. I want more days of appreciation. I would fight for those things, but really, the things that I would fight for are going to matter a lot more than a free meal at a Denny's. So let's all just take a wrap off and realize that the dude is ancient. If he lets something rip, he's old. It's going to be, it's either good or it's bad. There's like really no middle ground. So renaming Veterans Day, I think I've said way more than enough. Don't let it own you. It's not going to last if we're all pissed off. Having 3-letter organizations of the Veteran Services Organization speak out against it is good, just because you don't want it to be renamed. Okay, like making your opinion heard and saying, yeah, I don't think this is a good move. That's good, right? They walked it back, but I don't think losing your mind and talking about it all day long and writing page after page after page, even after they've said we're not doing it, they don't course correct in politics. They just say, you misunderstood us. But that's what they did. You misunderstood us. So moving on to things that actually matter for people. So as many veterans are aware, and some are morbidly aware, during the 2020 lockdown, Auschwitz of America, just the dumbest, worst period of time ever. A lot of veterans who were working in basically institutions that either failed because of COVID, a lot of small businesses failed because of lockdowns, or if they just couldn't get a solid source of income during those couple months, and they had a VA home loan that they had to pay, and they couldn't pay it because of those whatever you want to call them, it just like briefly shutting businesses down. I'm sure there's a perfect word for it, and somebody's out there thinking, what an idiot. But really, the important thing of this is that you have people who are making ends meet, and now they can't. So they were offered what was called forbearance. Forbearance just means you don't have to pay on your home loan while this is going on. Like, we'll give you a second to breathe. Let's let everything settle, which I think is appropriate. If the government's going to shut the country down, the government is therein responsible solely for making good on broken promises, for fixing what they broke. They didn't do that. They sent everyone, $1,000 or so, or $2,000, depending on your tax bracket, XYZ. That doesn't help. Being smarter helps usually, but I'm not going to get into all that. Essentially what happened is that the VA made what is called the VASP, and that allowed the VA to purchase delinquent mortgages. So after you have these people using forbearance, then, which I think this is the real issue. Okay. So when we get absorbed into veterans issues, we want to attack the VA. We want to attack, the government that's representing, the VA at the time. Like, we want to attack the current administration, the VA. I think that's really foolhardy. So if you understand this issue, actually understand this issue, the thing that happened is they gave forbearance. So they were given forbearance on their VA home loans, basically because the world was at a standstill, and you were going to have a lot of loans that went into a lot of houses that went into foreclosure. And if we foreclosed the whole real estate market, like you would nuke the American economy. So what these mortgage companies did, a lot of them did. So there's two ways where this ended up being terrible for these people that took this forbearance. Is that after that, let's say a year, like they let them have a year off of paying their mortgage, which is pretty slick. But if you weren't working, it didn't really help. They took that year of forborne money, right? So you have 12 months of your mortgage. Let's say it's $2,000. You have 12 months. It's $24,000. They add that onto your home loan, and then they re-amortize it. Okay. So that basically means they recreate the loan in current terms with current interest rates with $24,000 added back onto the loan. So these people not only got shafted by COVID, your government decided to ruin your career. Then the VA says, yeah, we're working with mortgage companies. We made this institution that will help you forbear these loans and give you these really lucrative loans for a certain period of time. Once that institution, that mortgage, that VA mortgage company, right? So the VA had to build basically this mortgage company to hold all these VA home loans as basically what would be like a mortgage banking system with these really low rate interest rates, all this stuff. They had to build infrastructure for it. Very noble. in effort, but as the government is concerned, like there's no way they're going to be able to do it. So when the VA couldn't hold their loans like that anymore for that 12-month forbearance, they give them these terms, and then they have to give those over to mortgage companies. And these mortgage companies are like, okay, well, you haven't paid that money off that loan. So that goes onto your loan. And then you're paying current interest rates because that's what we're signing you onto. And that's what these rates are now, not what you used to have. So all these people got absolutely boned. You know, you just for like a softball example, your monthly rate would go from $1,200. You're struggling, you don't have your job, COVID totally screwed you over, and then a year later you thought like you were okay, you're struggling, you're getting back on your feet, boom, $1,700 a month, like an extra $500, an extra third of what you're already paying or more, basically half, an extra half onto it, a third of the new rate. So really screwed these people over, and unfortunately VASP was built to save them from that and give them a better mortgage. So they didn't have to take these loans and just get absolutely demolished and go into default. All of them were going to have to go into default, go into foreclosure on their homes. And now we're kind of taking that away. And there are some people who, even though COVID was 5 years ago, haven't kind of gotten out of that debt to income cycle. And people are pissed, right? It's not a ton of people that are affected by this, but it's enough to where it sucks. They're going to have to sign on to these actual, mortgage companies at the current rates, like 6.5% when they used to have 2 point whatever or 3%. And they're going to have all that extra forborne money on top of it. So they're going to have these really expensive loans. And there's two things of my personal opinion is that you can never trust the government to basically help you out financially to that degree. We want to, it's just not the world that we live in. Like they're going to say they're going to do you good and then you're going to get fallen by the wayside. I would love to know. I mean, if anyone knows of a nonprofit helping these people get out of this sticky situation, I would be really interested in investing. I think that's a great idea to help these vets get out of a really sticky situation. I'll see if there's something we can do, but, that's on the fly thinking, ladies and gentlemen. As I speak, I'm thinking as well. But you have quite a bit of people coming onto these really heavy loans. They're still kind of just getting out of the COVID rut. And unfortunately, a lot of things are going on with tariffs, taxes, whatnot. So the instability continues. Like we've been unstable for quite a long time. And I'm not saying anything one way or the other about tariffs. I'm literally just saying like we are unstable. That it's breeding instability. It may end up being a net good, eliminating a lot of national debt. It might not. It might just flop on its face. But unfortunately, there are very few people who are willing to talk about that and like the logical, logistical reasons why it might work. And there are a lot of people who are like, and a lot of people who are like, it's gonna. So you kind of just have to deal with everyone jawing, not knowing what they're talking about, and living in a time of uncertainty when you're kind of getting shafted on this VASP program shutting down. If you know someone who's going through that right now, send me a message. I would love to get like a fund going to help these people out. $100 per person really could help go the distance. So unfortunate event. However, you've had 5 years. So realistically, and I know this isn't awesome for everyone and not everyone likes to hear tough love. However, realistically, from COVID forbearance to now, if you couldn't buckle down and save and you have a legitimate reason why you couldn't figure it out, you couldn't find a job, you couldn't work, you couldn't do this, someone should be coming to you. Let's make a fund. Let's help those people out. Otherwise, if you have had that time, and it's so easy to know if you've had the time. If you work all day long, it's not the prettiest thing in the world to say, yeah, this guy works, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. and he's working his butt off. But listen, when I was building Crunch Fitnesses, we had this couple from Venezuela and they did tile and they were doing the tile in our Crunch Fitness bathroom. They were legal. Don't freak out. And they worked. I worked long hours. I would show up, I'd be at the gym, just trying to like make sure everything went smoothly. If someone had a question, I was there, I could deconflict, whatever. I'd be at the gym for like 14 hours and I would show up and I would Sometimes I would unlock the door, sometimes I wouldn't. But this Venezuelan couple, and they were older, they were always happy, they were always on time, and they were literally always working. And there's just something to be said for that. There's a mentality that you can take on, which is, I'm going to do what needs to be done. Yes, you could go not work and protest in the streets for fairer wages, for XYZ, for all these things you want, try to get somebody else in government, waste your time posting on Facebook about it, or you could just deal with the cards you're dealt. It's a pretty great place to be, even when you're struggling. We do help people. We definitely help veterans. And you can get really, it's not good food, but you can get cheap food. You can get fed if you have to. You can get better food. You can do a lot of really fun things. There's a lot of public parks. There's a lot of things you can do here, and ways to live your life. Is it absolutely perfect? No. And I don't think that's the point of existing. So long story short, it is a huge bummer to see that program close. However, you can't really expect something like an institution like the VA to be able to stand up like a mortgage lending company. They're not that good at what they do. How on earth are they going to understand this giant, super competitive world of mortgage lending just out of extremis? Not going to happen. Didn't happen. I feel bad for you guys. Let's figure out something to do. If you've got an idea or if you know someone, let's change a life. Moving on to, this is something a buddy of mine sent me. So he sends me a message, and he just kind of, there's a list of countries that we don't ban Americans from going anywhere. There's no such thing as like you are banned from travel here. However, there might not be flights going to a lot of places. And there is a list of what we would call category 4 countries that we say do not go there. At least not right now, whatever. And a lot of typical countries that you would generally think of are on there, right? Like the Sudan, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. However, they just added one country, and my buddy sent this to me, and he just kind of wanted to know how many I'd been to. But the second I looked at the article, it said that North Korea was just recently added to the U.S. travel warning category 4 countries. The U.S. State Department added 2 new countries to level 4 avoidances. That would be North Korea and oh God, I forget what the other one was. It was a I don't care. Listen, I really don't care. But North Korea, I mean, I would way rather go to Sudan than North Korea for years ahead of now. Who made the decision that North Korea should be a level 3 category country? No one wants to go there that's an American. They're going to suck you into a weird vacuum tube and keep you in a little cage. I just thought that was absurd that they had been existing on like a level 3 threat. Like, it's not that bad, but it's pretty bad. Like, I wouldn't go, but you should be. I mean, you could be okay. It's like, I don't know about that, buddy. Moving on. So here's something that's been getting insane coverage on every format of news. And I'm here to bring you the absolutely practical side of this issue, like I do with everything, or I at least try to. It's always going to be my opinion. I can guarantee that. So as a lot of us have seen, an active duty guardsman, Coast Guardsman, I should say, based out of NAS Key West. So pretty cushy gig to be in the Coast Guard in Key West. I mean, they do some cool shit because, they're interdicting whatever degree of vessels coming out of Cuba and coming out of the, basically the Gulf of Mexico that are trying to land illegally or traffic drugs through the Gulf of Mexico into America. So, they're legit working for sure. I mean, they're doing boat interdictions, they're doing sway stuff, cool stuff. But being stationed in Key West, come on, dude, blow me. Like, that's awesome. So this guy's wife, she had a visa. So she basically got rolled up in this whole like ICE ramp up. And people are pissed, right? Because ICE went on base. And if you don't understand NAS Key West, it's like, yeah, they went on base. Well, it depends on which base she was at. But one of them, like, there's no gate guard. There's like a lot of base housing by the commissary where you just drive right in. I mean, it's got like a little outpost for a gate guard. I've never seen one there, and I've been there a lot. But NCIS, so they worked in tandem with ICE and the base police to kind of basically raid this dude's house while he's deployed and take his wife away. And they're, probably going to deport her. I don't know. She had a work visa in 2017 and it expired in 2017. So, 3 years before COVID and 5 years, you had 8 years to get your work visa sorted out. You've had 8 years to get your work visa sorted out, and you think that it's everybody else's fault but your own. I can't say what she thinks. I can't say what he thinks. I can just say what everybody else is bitching and moaning about. Oh my God, I can't believe we're going after our own military. He's deployed. How evil. It's like, please look at this practically. You have someone who is technically an illegal on base, in base housing. That's a fucking no-go, dude. That's an absolutely not situation. So, if you're getting disgruntled about that, it's like, yes, if they handled it with a higher level of decorum and hit that dude up and said, like, hey, if your wife jumps, we've got surveillance on her, just have her come leave base with some dignity and we'll kind of just let this, whatever. Maybe, but it's really the military. It's federal government. They're not that cool. It is what it is, right? You had 8 years to try to figure out your visa situation. You didn't. Lazy. Or you couldn't. And still, you understand what you're doing. This is the risk that you are taking. There's no other risk involved other than this. So you know the risk you're taking for 8 freaking years. You get married to this dude. I believe it was last year or the year before, something like that. And then they're living on base together. Base is going to do a background check into who you are. You haven't had a work visa for 8 years. Hello? Is anybody home? Is anybody out there, dude? Like, is this really the hill that everyone wants to die on? Why is everyone going absolutely insane? No, she can't live on base. She is an illegal. She doesn't have a current work visa. That's it. It just is what it is. If you weren't living on base and you were being a great citizen, or if you are living on base and you're being a great citizen, it doesn't matter. This is the military. Everyone within the military could be an insider threat for another country. They could be flipped over. It happened at the beginning of the year. If you don't remember, in Texas, a dude drove through his street with a vehicle and killed a bunch of people because ISIS flipped him. Okay? Insider threats are real, but you have an illegal person whose allegiance lies to another country and they haven't had the motivation to get their work visa squared away and they're living on base. Get out of town, dude. You guys are losing it. So, I want to talk about another thing that's getting... Well, so I want to talk about something that's not getting press, and I think it's a great legal precedent that was just set. So if you're a disabled veteran and you have a service dog, there are varying degrees of what level of service dog you need, you have, how you got it qualified, if you just went to one of those stupid online things and printed something off. It doesn't matter to me, really. Like, that's not what I'm having a conversation about. If we're talking about that, the only way to have a super legitimate, to totally legitimize your service animal, if that's something you'd want to do, and you have something like PTSD, you would go to your care provider in town, the person that you go to, and you would say, I have an animal. I would like to keep them with me. They give me moral support for XYZ, and then they sign a piece of paper, and that is like your higher level of fidelity. You don't actually have to have that, but it's a nice thing to have for an establishment. Makes you feel squared away. But getting into the story here, in February 2022, a guy named Chris Taylor, a Vietnam War veteran, had his service animal with him. He was going to visit family members who were having a celebration at KNB Inflatables. So that's like a little play place where they bounce around on inflatable stuff. Whoever the manager was at the time basically said, no, you can't have a dog in here. We don't have like waivers for that. We don't have insurance to cover for that. And basically kicked him out. That guy therein sued that company, and Taylor won in 2025. So it's been a drawn out battle, and they won $25,000 in damages. I believe that would probably only cover lawyer fees for this insane amount of time that it's been since. they started this case. But what it really does is it sets a precedent. So a precedent has been set. If you get kicked out of a place and you feel like if you really need your service animal and you were kicked out of a place and it was unjustified, you can reference this. So Nittany Mall Business, K&B Inflatables, Christopher Taylor, those are the things you're looking for. Those are the buzzwords. You look that up, you bring it to a lawyer, and you will likely win your case, or it will have to go a little further than your local court because a precedent has now been set. I get it from both sides here. Like, if that dude really needs the service animal, he's a Vietnam vet. He's pretty old. And he really wants to be with his family. He came all the way out to K&B Inflatables. You don't know. He lives out in the sticks. He's tired. He just wants to be there. Now he's pissed. Whatever. I don't know. And then from their point of view, it's just like, yeah, dude, don't bring your razor sharp dog into our inflatable store and ruin everything. I don't know. I don't know the specifics of the situation, but it's really good for veterans out there to understand that there's a legal precedent that has been set. And if anyone offends you, that is something that you can reference. I'm not telling you to go out there and be a turd. I am, however, telling you that there is basically there's a legal precedent and it has been set. I said that like 8 times. So something I want to talk about that I've seen on a couple different platforms from a couple different prevalent veteran influencers. So there's this guy named John Arias. He was pardoned for sexual abuse and battery that he committed against his wife. So this is a veteran service member. He was working with the American Legion. In 1994, he was convicted of first-degree sexual assault after breaking into his estranged wife's home in Ogallala. That's it. Ogallala, Nebraska. He threatened her with a knife, tied her to a bed, and assaulted her while their young children were present. I don't know what present means. It might mean they're in the house. It might mean they watched. If they watched, that's insane. Arias then fled with the children to Texas, leaving his wife bound and gagged, which is relatively dangerous. He served 14 years in prison and was released in 2008. He was released by a pardon committee that the then Governor Pete Ricketts, Attorney General Doug Peterson, and Secretary of State Bob Evan voted 2-1 to basically exonerate him, pardon him of his crimes, and that gets him out early. He was serving a life sentence and he got out early. So, and they basically did that because of good behavior, what he was doing for the veteran community, yada yada yada. When he went to the meeting, so I think those are public hearings, American Legion members showed up and forced to support him getting out. I'm going to say this, and those the American Legion members who wore their really dumb looking hats. Sorry guys, I'm a member as well, and I support you guys. I hope you find a better direction than what's been going on lately. However, the hats are dumb. I don't want to wear one. It just is. I don't, like, whatever heritage it is, like that hat with all the shiny shit on it. Like, I wasn't a Boy Scout because it wasn't cool enough for me, dude. You can't look swaggy in a little dumb vest with a bunch of buttons on it. Same with that hat. So they basically came in uniform to attend, to show like support, and the American Legion, very rightly so. What did they all those members were put on suspension for doing that. But here's the real issue. Recently, Arias was given a job by the American Legion in a leadership position. He is the area vice commander for the Nebraska American Legion, a leadership position that oversees multiple Legion posts in the Tri-Cities area. So this is where it's getting weird, and it's drawing a lot of criticism, and I understand that. I mean, you have people showing out for a dude who definitely did wrong, like just straight up did wrong. Now, whatever she was doing to him that incited him to do that, or stealing children, or whatever was going on in their personal lives, you can never threaten and beat a woman and tie her to a bed and assault her. Like, whatever your personal opinion is on the who is that? The Sean Connery smack, like the classic 007 smack. Whatever your opinion is on that, like that is the nth degree. Like if a chick can go, if some chick's trying to shoot me, I'm gonna handle her like regular business. But for this kind of stuff, like marital, whatever, like you're dealing with your own spouse, like that is horrible to do. And to show out and say that he's like reformed and a good guy, also not the right move. But the ultimate not the right move is to take him back into the fold. Sorry, dude, you lose your privilege for life, and you can get a job somewhere else. You can try with another nonprofit. You can start your own. You understand the system. But one thing that I think is really important to note is that you shouldn't be allowed back in, especially in a role where he's overseeing lots of people, especially if you have women working under him who feel wildly uncomfortable about it. Just like not a good look. It doesn't, I could imagine a woman working, if a woman worked under me and they had heard some evil stuff that I did to a woman or something, I would feel awkward. They would feel awkward. It's not a good move on any level. So, hey, American Legion, don't do that. That's dumb. Moving on to a story that I think is really messed up. So Tyler Morin, there isn't a lot out about this. I'm going to try to kind of bring up the intake of these military veteran news weeks. Instead of doing bi-weekly, I'm going to move it up to like once a week. I enjoy doing it. Tyler Morin, ex-Army cat, staff sergeant. He was kitted out, and some of his friends have come forward and say he was dealing with PTSD. A lot of people are. He was kitted out and walking in Florida, walking in his like locale in Florida. People obviously called because he's kitted out. He's got a loaded firearm. It was an AR of some sort. Daniel Defense, maybe. I don't know. That'd be nice. Daniel Defense is nice. But basically, he was told to disarm. He was kind of like walking very regimentedly, like he's like on a patrol or something. That's all we've really got. He was walking, and then he was fatally shot because he wouldn't put down his firearm. So there's two sides to look at this. One is like, hey, I know my rights, and I don't have to disarm. I'm like, if I'm allowed to open carry, if I've got a license, yada, 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 in certain places and do certain things with a firearm. And that's my constitutional right. However, me as a person, my personal opinion, like if I'm doing that, and if I get pulled over by a police officer and I'm lawfully carrying a weapon, I let them know. I say, I have a firearm on me. I'll do whatever you want with it to get this wrapped up faster. This is an interaction between two people. Okay. So like our whole idea of like us versus them with the police in any way is not how real life works. If you have a firearm on you and a police officer is talking to you, you should let them know and be like, I would love for you to take it away from me. Very few times in history, and I would love to be proven wrong on this, but very few times in history, if any, per year, does a police officer just grease somebody because they felt like it. Like they're so uncomfortable and they just feel like it and say they blast someone away. I'm sure someone's going to be all upset and send some video. It's like, sure. Do people make poor decisions when risk is elevated? Yes, absolutely. And it's a high risk situation for a police officer. However, to say that like being fully kitted out with your AR walking around town, like you're not asking for something, like, you are. You are. Okay. You are totally allowed to, but you're asking for something, whatever that is. And then the flip side of this is like taking immediate action with your guns and not like trying to walk this dude down, pulling out a taser, like talking online. Hey, you take out a taser, we'll take containment and move forward. I understand that I have a soft background. And so taking containment on a prisoner and doing prisoner handling, things that we train, we're elevated to a certain degree. We get paid more. We have more training hours. We're better on guns. We're the best of the best to that regard. So do you expect that of just like three police officers who roll up together and have never worked together in this capacity? No, you shouldn't. However, it should be pretty simple to understand that someone should be ready to take non-lethal action. The issue that you think of in a situation like that is that they have a firearm. So if you elevate the threat level, like they are inclined to use their weapon. So the question therein becomes like, how safe can you be? What are you willing to risk? How confident are you in your gun? How confident are you as a war fighter? And listen, being a beat cop, police officer, whatever, I don't expect you to be super confident. So this is a really difficult, like, who's in the wrong type deal to answer until we have more information. However, I would say both are in the wrong until we have more information, right? The cops should have taken a little more time to try to talk him down. Maybe get a negotiator in there. Maybe just get someone on a bullhorn further away. Like, one of you check up, you know, like, do we need 3 people in a kill squad, firing squad? And if you're really not confident in your shots, yeah, maybe you don't want to tell someone to go check up and whatever. I get it. There's a lot of ways to look at this kind of thing. It's super unfortunate. The guy was seriously dealing with something, obviously dealing with something. Why would you be just like walking around kitted up unless you're one of those influencers who is like, I'm going fishing and I can have my rifle on me, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't seem like this was one of those situations. We'll see as more information comes out. Just my heart goes out to his family. A lot of guys have come out and said he was the kind of staff sergeant you would want, really cared about the dudes, was really squared away. So it's very unfortunate to see people like this go down, especially like that gunned down by our own federally backed wielders of power. It's sad, definitely sad. So I'll be reporting on that as more comes, but that's all we know. Like, literally, as I checked right before we started talking here. So, moving into some more kind of healthcare and wellness issues that are out there. Here's one thing that I want to talk about. I guess I'll knock this out in a different order than I had it written down. But when the federal government, when the current administration comes to the VA and says, we're cutting this many people away to save dollars, a lot of people therein think, okay, well, you cut all these staffers away from the VA. So where does that money go? It's a very common question right now. I've seen a lot of articles addressing this from a lot of different kind of MilVet institutions that report on military veteran stuff. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, they don't have to do shit with it. We're in so much debt that any money that you cut away, paying into the surplus, like paying that debt off, that might be where it all goes. It might not come back to us. They might be cutting staffers away, and it adversely affects veterans. That is the price we pay as a nation when we're in super, super deep debt. It's just a crazy thing that for a very long time, like, we've just been very comfortable with this degree of debt, and we didn't think that at any point in time, we would have to pay the piper. You like, how is this tenable? You know, like, trillions of dollars of debt being serviced at whatever interest rate is so much money. So we might not get that back. And what Doug Collins, the current secretary of the VA, has literally said is that is up to the president. So it's not literally up to the president, but it is up to the current administration to figure out that issue. Might not come back to us, ladies and gentlemen. We might not get the stellar care that we know we deserve. And that's something that we should certainly fight for, because if we don't fight for it, they're going to give it to somebody else. So make your voices heard. But the bitching and moaning and acting like we're entitled, not the best look, but communicating in intelligent ways how we should be spending that money and what we could be spending it on and where we have deficits after we address what has changed after we lost all these employees. That is how you approach it. Approach your solutions. You know, if we all support one thing, you know, things that will help the VA, things that will change the VA. That is what my company does. We're building solutions to help the VA get better. And I think there's a lot to be done in the space. I think that's what we should focus on as a veteran collective. We should find things that we believe in and we should support them and not just say, oh, the VA, the federal government is stealing our money, yada, yada, yada. There's a difference between being entitled and informed. And let's kind of move into the path of informed, you know, get away from solely crying and moaning about the issue and finding solutions that we can support, and be positive. Positivity is a hallmark of a great leader. So let's choose to lead in the absence of leadership. Moving on to one other thing that I think is going to be seriously huge in the future here. So as we're seeing a lot this year, in the past years, it's kind of been like we're reaching a fever pitch. And what I'm trying to say here is we're reaching a fever pitch in our understanding of what TBIs do to the brain. We're also reaching a fever pitch in how unbelievably important it is to understand the effects of blast damage on our brains, because blast damage is so much worse for your brain than regular concussive physical connection, right? Like a car crash, hitting helmets, things like that. Blast damage is so much worse. And so we're learning a lot about TBIs, right? And how they're affecting the veteran population. There's a lot of work to be done there. Even when I got out, and this was only 2 or 3 years ago, they still don't qualify TBI to any degree unless it's massive, as something that you can get paid disability for. And to let you know, while I was in service, I had this service connected. I went to the hospital in Hawaii for this. I got knocked out from a climbing accident, fell off a cliff somewhere in the range of 25 to 35-ish feet, somewhere down there. And then rocketed straight to the ground, hit my head on a rock, broke my fall with a rock, luckily. And I blacked out for 8 hours. And that is not a major enough TBI because my body was still moving. So I was like responding to things. I was like being aggressive. I was out of my mind. But because I was moving around, I had enough adrenaline or whatever, warrior mindset. How many stories do we have to hear where dudes get completely blown away and they wake right up and they drive vehicles for hours, right? Like, this isn't what we were created to do. We were created to fight. And so they don't count it as a TBI, a major TBI, unless you're out for hours, which is like, okay, like you're looking at brain damage to the degree in which you'd be a vegetable, but that's how they currently grade it. So the issues are still there. And the reason I bring this up is because we are bringing in a new era of weapon that I think is going to be worse for us by a country mile than blast exposure. And that's saying a lot. Mark my words. Mark my words. These microwave weapons for drones that they're creating that actually work are going to absolutely kill people from cancer shortly after their military service. I want to see the testing. I want to see where they're saying these things are safe. I want to see where they're making the protocols for how often you can use it per day. You saw the what is the military contingent like that guards the Vatican? What are they called? They have a cool name. Whatever. The Crusaders, the cool dudes. Like, they wear cute little outfits. They were, as all the cardinals met, they all had these cannons, microwave cannons. We now have a MADIS system that also uses microwave technology to interdict intercontinental ballistics and different things like that. And we also have these cannons. We have, we're building tanks. We're building, like physical, like, RPG style, like laser microwave machines. Please, for the love of God, if you're out there, if you're listening and you have any connection to anyone that has any influence in the T&E department of the military. I've met a few people in my career, and I haven't. It's hard to nail down the exact guy. I forget what their titles are, but they have a lot of influence in these spheres. Just let's find out what these are going to do to people, like, to some degree. I know we have to use them. It's war. Like, things are going to get nasty. Agent Orange is nasty. TBIs are nasty. Lots of things are nasty. But this high-powered microwaves right next to your head shooting it like a missile, just have a really, really bad feeling about it. Mark my words. But don't want to be the biggest doomsday guy, so I do want to talk about something that hits closer to home. So Nathan Gage Ingram, if you don't know the story, the Navy SEAL, who their platoon, I believe, is, oh gosh, I'm going to be so sorry, team guys, if I mess this up. Maybe Team 3. They were tasked with interdicting a vessel that was claimed by Iranians and supplying missile components to whoever. Basically, that's like the full scoop. And it was a high sea state day. So the most dangerous thing, if you've never heard this before, that Navy SEALs do is high sea state vehicle interdiction. So VBSS, vehicle board search and seizure. Just because there's a lot of things going on, especially at night. High sea state at night is mortifying to do in any kind of training, and high sea state in training is, 2-foot waves, 3-foot waves. Because when you get close to a boat like that and you're on a small boat and they're on a big boat or whatever, just things go crazy, right? So high sea state, very, very scary, very risky. They were called into action. So this platoon of dudes, they were called to action, obviously answered the call. That's what we do. We want to do it. Team guys, we want, give us a risky mission and we're sending. Dudes are happy. But a SEAL, Chief SEAL named Chris Chambers, lost his grip as he was transferring from the SEAL vehicle, you could call it, SWIC boat-driven vehicle, to the Iranian captured missile supplying vehicle. We climb a ladder. I'm not going to get into tactics here, but, basically he lost grip on the ladder. It's a teeny tiny ladder, slippery, huge sea state. Lots of crazy shit can happen, crazy tension between the ladder, people pulling on you, yada, yada, yada. Bad things happen. He falls into the water. This kid, Nate Gage Ingram, I've talked to a lot of guys who knew him very, very well, and they all just said he was that guy. He was a stud. He was that man. And even within the SEAL teams, like a lot of people have this perception that it's just like, oh my God, these guys are all so sick. And it's like, well, you're in a group of these dudes for a long time, even right from training. It's like some of these dudes are dorks. Like you make your little niches, your little collections, these guys do their thing, these guys do their thing, and everybody knows who are the resoundingly really, really great dudes. And from anything I could tell, Nate Gage Ingram was just that kind of guy. Had a smile that could light up your face. And so when he saw his teammate getting launched into the drink and knowing how insanely dangerous it is while being on an op, going full bore, I believe it was at night, in a high sea state, how insanely dangerous it is to be dropped in the drink in full kit with all that gear. He didn't think. He went together. We're trained as swim buddies. We're trained to never leave each other alone, especially in that situation. And he went. They were never found because, there are just an insane amount of things that can happen in that kind of scenario. And just to give everyone an idea, doesn't matter how good you are at swimming, the sea is insanely dark. If you get hit by a huge wave, which I believe is exactly what happened, the pressure from that wave, even at sea, is going to push you down. If you're already wearing kit, what happens to your body under pressure is that oxygen gets compressed. So you have less lift to get you, just to elevate you to where you're going. And so they began to sink, and then they sank deep, and he's looking for his guy. You never know how deep they got before he realized, oh my God, I need to kick to the surface. I'm not going to find him. So unfortunately, we lost 2 teammates, and he was posthumously given the Navy and Marine Corps Medal. So the Navy and Marine Corps Medal is the highest honor that you can give to a non-combat action. I'm proud of him for getting that. Absolutely deserves this medal. I would say potentially deserves a little bit more. I think when this goes to big Navy and you're not talking about an officer, you're talking about an enlisted, especially a SEAL, where we are graded on a curve. A lot of, elite tier military are graded on a curve when you're giving medals. Very selective of how you give things out. I think it's slightly offensive, in my personal opinion, to call that a non-combat action. It is the most dangerous thing we can do. You're dealing with Iranians who have missiles on a vessel. You're doing a live action. This was not in training to just save somebody's life. You're doing an insanely dangerous thing. You're giving your life for a brother. I think there are plenty of precedents that have been set in different wars. We just recently posthumously gave I believe he was a cook from Pearl Harbor an award. His ship was sank and he saved a few people from drowning. There was no combat portion of that Medal of Honor citation. So I think, doesn't matter what I think. I appreciate that he was given that medal. I love that his wife was there to receive it. I think that's really special. That's really powerful. It's a great thing for them. And I'll move on. Rest in peace, LLTB. So moving into some of these greater DOD movements that are going on. We're seeing like a lot of things change under Pete Hegseth's leadership because he's completely and utterly cares about the lethality of the force, which is a big change from the previous administration. So John Phelan, the secretary, Felon, the Navy secretary, has shifted our focus from climate change in the Navy to lethality. I think that's something worthy of note because the military's main function is lethality. It's not to satisfy political agendas. If you can say that, what our Navy is producing in waste is like the crux to climate change, whatever your opinion is, listen, understand that it's an opinion. If anything is politically divided, which most things are, it's an opinion. I recently had my mom in town who I love and is a great person. And this is not to call her out, but she's an older liberal person, and when you start talking about vaccines, it's very difficult, right? Like, and she says this: our generation has a very difficult task to sort through a lot of information, and it's all fairly new. Whereas for them, it was just like, yeah, send and receive. Like, we trust doctors, and we always have. If they say this is the vaccine schedule, for which there were 3 or 4 when I was a kid. They just trusted it. They just went with it. There was no major crisis that was being associated with it. And so our generation has a very, very serious task of understanding, should we vaccinate our children, at least to the degree of the schedule of what's going on now, right? You change from 3 to whatever it is, 57 now. There are some things that come into speculation, right? There are some things that we're going to try to suss out and figure out why are so many kids having neurodivergent diseases attached to them, and is it the fact that we're seeing them all? I don't know. I have no dog in this fight other than my personal beliefs, and I'm going to act on my personal beliefs. But when we get into conversations like this, with people that we are politically separated with, I would say I'm more middle, but I lean right, and I think she's very much more middle, but she leans left. And our conversation kind of turned into, well, she's like, well, the science has always supported XYZ. And it's like, well, if we're going to get into this science conversation that we seem to constantly be having these days, I think it's safe to say that we should all acknowledge the fact that there's a reason it's a theory of gravity, right? The theory of evolution. We can't take the degree of science and the intent of science for granted. There is no concrete fact. There is the best that we're doing right now. And so if counter evidence is coming up and there's a counterintuitive idea or a new idea that's opposing the current status quo of scientific theory, that happens all the time. It's happened all the time. And so if you're ever finding yourself saying, well, that's the science, it's science, please understand that in so doing, you are making a greater statement. And you're saying that we figured it out. We totally understand. We get it all. At this moment, this thing that we're talking about, I think this, you think that. And for the simple fact that it's science, you are admitting that you're saying that we figured it all out. There's no reason to contest it. Now, if you're going to say you're not a scientist and you haven't done any research, yeah, there's like a certain degree of, fidelity you need to get as an individual on your own, right? You need to come with correct on your own account. You can't just, cite Instagram videos and people that you like. You need to go look at something, form an opinion, and then support that opinion. And that's what everything is. It's having an opinion. A scientific paper is founded on an opinion. Now, they did research, but that research didn't figure out everything. It was based upon a lot of assumptions of things that already existed to probably figure out something very small to make assumptions about other things. If you've ever read scientific paper, if you've read summaries and feces, if you've ever read scientific jargon, it is always going to protect itself from making a very hard proclamation, because that's not how science works. It doesn't say we figured it out. It says this seems right. This seems right. So if you become therein the person that's like, yes, climate change is without a doubt super affected by the military, and the military has to completely capitulate and change to this social agreement that we think climate change is bad and it should stay that way forever, the odds that you're wrong are really, really high. If you say you're exactly right and you know exactly what's going on, you're almost always going to be wrong. I mean, that's just the status quo of being a human being since the beginning of time. It's like the more we figure out, the more wrong we are. If you want to debate me on that one, I really don't care. I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not saying climate change doesn't exist. I do think we have an effect on this planet. Do I agree to the degree in which things are changing? I don't know. There's lots of explanations why things change. Things change all the time. But do I think that the first place that we should go all the time this happens, with the trans rights, with the climate change stuff, like we always want to get it all the way to the military. And the reason is as a politician, you want it to get all the way to the military because that's the most serious thing there is. Fighting wars, people dying, men fighting for their country. It's the most passionate, serious thing that there is. And so when your political ideology elevates itself to rest on top of the military, right? Once it's ingrained in the military, because the military is apolitical, it has to be. So for it to function properly. So if you can get your thing into it, that means that it's no longer a political thing and it's just American socio-political fact. That's why people want it in there. Can we stop doing that? Can we stop thinking that the first place we should try shit out is, like when I was going through Buds, everyone was talking about the women thing. So they had just opened up all different special operations candidacies and all different rates and whatever to women. And it was a huge talking point. We talked about it all the time. Obviously, you just got a gaggle of dudes who just did the thing that they think is absolutely impossible for any other male. So then we think, could a female possibly do it? And the greatest advice we ever got was from our Master Chief at the time. I'm not going to say his name, but he just came in front of us all and he said, if you're confident that this was the hardest thing that anyone could ever do, which I am, let him come. Let him come. Who cares? And once you let that settle in, it's fine. But our constant talking point was like, why is this where we want to test this theory? Send them to the NFL. Get a female into college football first. Why here? Why is it always here? Why is it always the military that we're going to do these experiments? But at the end of the day, reason will prevail. Reason will prevail. And in that instance, yeah, open it up. If you guys can do it, all the power to you, but you should not get a leg up in any feasible way at all. Moving on from that, I'm starting to just rant politically. So please, all the people in here, just stop me before I go too crazy. So the Army, this is stupid. Maybe okay. I'm gonna do a serious thing first, or something that's cool, and then I'll end with this really stupid thing that I'm gonna go into, and I'm gonna do it. The space race is sallying forth. So the space race, as we all know, was decided when we got to the moon. Suck it, Russia. Sorry, the Cold War didn't end, but the space race did. Okay, note that I'm an educated man. I've read some books. I've taken history classes. Oh, and there goes my light. Great. Fantastic. All right. Well, we're gonna keep talking about it anyways because it's so interesting. I won't end this whole podcast because my light went out. It only has a certain amount of time in it. So the space race is still going, just so you all know. With the creation of the Space Force, Trump's creation of the Space Force back in, 2020? 2019? 2018? We have been moving toward basically everyone wants a foothold militarily in space. We have the International Space Station. There's so many cool things going on in space, satellites, what Elon Musk is doing with, oh my God, SpaceX. Sorry. That's crazy that I forgot that. What we're doing now is a Seattle-based aerospace company called Gravitics has been awarded a $60 million contract to develop an orbital carrier. What we want to do is have a pre-positioned launch pad in case space war starts happening, which, if it does, sign me up. Okay, put me in a robot suit, launch me out. I will fight. I will do anything to be a part of that. Anything. I swear to God. Space war, please hit me up. I want to be Space Cowboy Mark 001. I want to write the TTPs. I want to be a part of it desperately. But we're building a space carrier. With mini contracts, things don't happen, right? They just work at it for a while. They enjoy all that money, all that funding, because once they get a big contract like that, other people fund them. They get private equity involved. So they're having a great time. Gravitics is happy about this, but they do have a product that we're expecting them to deliver. And the current administration doesn't seem like they're messing around with delivered products, as they did cut a ton of contracts from the military because of, a lack of fidelity, which is my favorite word right now. So they're building an aircraft carrier for space. That's really cool. I'm really excited for that. I really hope that happens in my physically capable lifetime. If I'm like 60, I'll have to bow out and say, like, I'll go on as a commander or something. Like, just get me involved, but I won't be the first space cowboy. Or maybe I will. You look at guys like Liam Neeson still doing it in his old age. I mean, it's for movies, but he's still moving around. Okay, so my final thing, and this is just stupid. So apologies in advance, but this is something that I thought needed to be addressed. The Army has announced the new name for the their new long-range hypersonic weapon. Hypersonic is super, super fast. It's faster than Mach speed. That's like some 10, 80, 800 times faster than Mach speed, which is crazy for me to understand. But a long-range hypersonic weapon, which is super important in the current state of affairs. It's a major deterrent for wars with modernized countries like Russia. But the name, okay? So, if you play Xbox or if you've ever played a video game, you understand that, when kids are naming things, it's always going to be like Dark Wolf X or like Red Black Wolf. That's why kids like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, because you had like Red Eyes Black Dragon and like Blue Eyes White Dragon. Like, that's very much dumb little kid naming. And when you get into the military sphere, it can be that way, but it's generally going to be something a little bit cooler, whatever, Operation Thunderclap. But it's still pretty cool. Okay. Operation Thunderclap sounds dope. I don't know how old you get where you're like, that sounds silly. And I hope there's no age, because I want to always think stuff like that is cool. But they named this new long range hypersonic weapon Dark Eagle. Getting a little too, I swear to God, if a Gen Z kid was not part of this, come on, dude, Dark Eagle, what is the gun dark and it eagle because a round flies in the air? I get it. Eagle is us. Okay. America, eagle. Eagle's always going to fly, right? We call people eagles, packs, whatever. But to name something Dark Eagle is just stupid to me. Might as well be called Little X, Big X, Dark Eagle, Big X, Little X, and or Ghost Reaper, Dark, Sardonic Grin, 321, Dark Evil, Night, Wolf, Dragon. This was dumb. I don't know why I even did this. I'm going to wrap up with that. So I'm Liam Cogan. This is the 3 Bravo podcast. This was your military veterans news. We're going to come at you weekly. We've got a lot of cool things coming. Maybe even by the time this airs, our website, 3bravo.org, is going to be up. A cool place where I'm going to be hosting some webinars in the near future, have some very cool events on the very near forecast, and some cool software, some cool objectives, some very cool things are happening in the background, which is why I haven't made a lot of videos and been able to post as much, is because I'm trying to just get caught up. I did have some other things to go attend and do. But cool stuff is happening. I'm Liam Cogan. This is the 3 Bravo podcast. Follow along. Check out 3bravo.com as it comes, or .org as it comes out probably next week. This was your military veteran news for the week of 5/1/2025. See y'all later. See y'all later. Goodbye.